Hello, welcome to the player data. So the pink and the orange columns are the data that you would have sent across to me, and over in a separate tab called lookups is where I put all your FIFA data. So I'll go through and try and explain. You'll have to bear with me of how I calculate it, and this has been an ongoing thing. It's taken me quite a long time to actually finalize this, and you might disagree with how I do it, but it's definitely the easiest way I've found to do it. And I've also found that the FIFA data doesn't line up exactly with the old USM data, so it's hard to get a true representation of the player from the FIFA data, and I'll explain more as I go through. So that's the data you've given me. I'll put that in, and then from the yellow column onward will be formulas of how I've done it. So this first one is just a lookup. So Aaron Barnes, this data was obviously gathered from the Football Squad website, and then it's just a comparison. It's just a VLOOKUP to the lookup table into the FIFA data, which is obviously here. So that player couldn't be found. So Aaron Barnes doesn't feature in the FIFA data. Therefore, there's no score to give him. There's no defined position to give him. So what I need to do is give him a score and define him a position. So the score is generated from the team that he plays for and from that team rating. So he's in a team, Charlton Athletic, which have got a rating of 10. So he gets a score of 53. And then this is just a random number generator, and this depending on his position, and this will give him a random position. So he could be a right back, but I've assigned him to be a central defender. Now, if the player's got FIFA data, so Aaron Chapman here has got FIFA data. In fact, let's use Aaron Collins. He's got FIFA data. So on his FIFA data, it's 55. Now, because the FIFA data doesn't align with USM data, what I've had to do is increase it by a factor of 0.06. And the reason I found this is Messi, a couple of years ago was obviously the best player in the world. He was and his rating was 94. So what I wanted to do was make that the top rating, so increase that to 100, just to line it up, because obviously the best player in USM would have a rating of 99. I think FIFA are just a bit strict on the scores they give them, whereas USM isn't. So his score's been increased by a factor of 1.06, so it takes it to 58. And because he's got FIFA data, he's a striker, and a striker will change him to an attacker, an AS rather than an AF, which is down here. And that position will define how their stats go, and I'll come on to this now. So again, this is just generated, so this is just all the formulas that I use. Now I check to make sure that the players haven't got names longer than 13 characters. So again, that will flag up. Also, if there's duplicate players, that will also flag up. So you can see here I've got 2 players under the same name, and they're obviously the same player. They've obviously just moved teams and that data hasn't come across. So all I'll do is I'll Google that player and find out what current team he's at and delete that player. So if we scroll across, this is all the formulas. So this is just their date of birth, that will stay the same. It's just the year, just 19 gets taken away from the year, obviously, because you can't change the clock within the game itself. So although you're playing 2017 data, you're still playing in the year 1998. So we just need to take 19 off their year of birth to make sure they're the same age. Otherwise they'd be like 3 years old. The team, that's the team that it corresponds to. So Aaron Cresswell, obviously at West Ham. Yeah, so that's why he's got 0, because West Ham was 0. The league name, or LN, that's just 0, and that's the same for all English teams, and then it's 1 for Scotland and 2 for Spain, and so on. The nationality, so this lines up with where they were born. And 0, I know 0 is England, so obviously these guys are English, and so on. And that's again just a VLOOKUP into the lookups column, and this is all the countries that are listed in USM. Now what I'm going to try and do is, because there's loads of new countries, so I want to try and change that, and I can do that within the hex data. It's just a bit of an ongoing thing, because some countries aren't recognised. So obviously it had Bosnia before, which isn't used anymore, so it will be reused. Benin, which has been used, but we haven't got that, so I've just linked it to Nigeria. So it's not entirely accurate. I mean, if you're one of the main countries, you're going to get the right one. Keeping. So if you're a goalkeeper, it will just be dependent on what your overall score is. So if we have a look at Aaron Chapman, who's a goalkeeper, he's got a rating of 59, so therefore his main stat will be 59, and this goes with all the players. So Aaron Chapman, who's got 53, he's a defender, so his main score for his stat will be 53. A midfielder will obviously be passing, and attacker will be shooting. Now, FIFA, although it's got loads of data, it doesn't line up. You could have a defender which has got better passing than tackling. So USM will see them as a midfielder, not a defender. So all I've done is, depending on the position and the skill rating, I've just assigned it a random number which corresponds to that position. So for a central defender, you're going to have their passing and shooting will be similar. If it's a defensive midfielder, obviously the passing is going to be higher. So I've done that. If I go down to a defensive midfielder, see if I can find one. And this is just the USM data. I don't have any control of this. So we've got a DMC here. So we can see that his tackling and passing are quite similar, and that's just USM. There's nothing I can do about that. That's why I don't use all the FIFA data. And then you've got passing, heading, stamina, set pieces, ball control, and again they're just random numbers again from the main player rating. The pace is changed a bit. I can use the pace from the FIFA data to make that a bit more accurate. But as terms of set pieces, if it's too high, it doesn't go across into the USM data. It's hard to explain, but this is just trial and error from what I've done. Otherwise, it mucks around too much with the player and changes them from what they should be. This column is the side, so whether they're left, right-footed, or in the centre, and I think 0 is just a random. 0 is centre, and so on. And then you've got the development. So again, this is randomly assigned depending on their age and what team they're at. So if they're a young player at Man City, they're more likely to get a 9. If they're an old player at a lower division, they're probably going to get a 0. I think let's have a look at the formula. If they're over a certain age, if they're over like 24, they won't get a rating. They'll only get it if they're a young player. So if you really wanted to cheat, you could have a look and see what the best players are going to be in terms of development. And then this here is just your data which gets added to the editor, and I'll show that in another video. Right at the very end, we can see we've got a this just yeah, what I found, if a player had 3 names, so you know, a first name, a middle name, and a last name, it would always put the 2 names at the end, and therefore, so here we've got this guy, and it just separates the names. Otherwise, it would put it into the first name. So, and then this column will tell me if the first name is bigger than 14 characters or the last name is bigger than 14 characters. So there's a lot of double-barreled names which I've changed because it's too big and it caused the game to crash. So like Oxlade Chamberlain will just be abbreviated to O Chamberlain, and so on. And then this column calculates, this is just a macro that I've written, and what I've done is got rid of all the special characters. Now USM will accept some special characters, but what I found is that some of them cause the game to crash. So all I've done is to deleted all special characters completely, and I know this might annoy some of the you know, Spanish, Portuguese fans, you know, who like USM, but I just can't narrow it down enough to not cause the game to crash, and the only way I have done that is by deleting all the special characters. So that's the player data. I hope, you know, I've explained it enough. I've waffled on probably, but if you have any questions, or you know, think I could do it any better, I'd like to hear your suggestions. But no, I hope you enjoyed the video.